Welcome to the Living Legacy Podcast, where we feature wealth experts, investors, and entrepreneurs as they share their inspiring journey to living their best life. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everybody, Brian Fauci with the Living Legacy Association, where we empower the middle class with the strategies and investing methods of the ultra-rich. And this episode is brought to you by Legacy. And our mission really is to empower our clients with the knowledge and strategy to achieve that financial prosperity in life that we all desire. So whether you want to save on taxes, whether you want to grow your assets, identify investments for investing, we're going to help you do that. So to learn more, go to livinglegacyassociation.com. Now, I've got someone here today that I'm pretty excited to hear from. Now, this is Shane Mahoney. Now, Shane, you and I have known each other for what? It's been
6 years.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 years, and off and on a little bit through some groups. And I've watched your journey to where you're at today, and it's been amazing. And what you do now, for those who don't know Shane helps executives and business owners and families experience a very stress-free or stressless travel in their vacations and experiences when they go and do these these trips. And he's done this to a level and a degree that I've never seen before. And so I'm excited to get into how he got to where you're at right now, because it's Lugos Travel. It's a cool thing. And I've seen some of the experiences that people have gone on, that they've shared, that you've constructed for them. And the feedback is just amazing. So Shane, how did you, first off, let's rewind a little bit and look at how did you get your start? How did you get into entrepreneurship? I mean, what were you doing before Lugos Travel?
Oh man, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. So it's not where I didn't end up where I thought I would. I guess it's probably the easiest way to put it. Undiagnosed ADHD. I had a passion for a lot of different things that I studied at a surface level. And so when I graduated college, I literally had no idea what I wanted to do. It was really who's going to give me a job. And so I got kind of lucky. And one day I woke up and I was just like, well, I like cars. Let me send applications to the large car manufacturers. I'm sure they can use people. And Ford Motor Credit actually ended up hiring me. So it set me off into a path of credit. I was a credit card analyst, not credit card analyst, a credit analyst for cars. And I was ultimately the guy at the bank that was like, yes, Brian, you can absolutely buy that new car. Or like, hey, man, we got to check your employment. And in some cases it'd be like, it's not happening. Right. Yep. And so I parlayed that job into working as a finance manager for car dealerships, which is roughly the same job, just a different seat. And because of those two things, I was kind of set into a sales and finance position for the next 12 years. I did a lot of different things as I was trying to kind of find what I really wanted to do. But basically at 34, I really just hit a wall where, the money didn't do it for me anymore. I wasn't living the life that I really wanted to live. And not necessarily from the perspective of am I traveling to the Maldives every month or something like that? This is my background. But more from the position of how do you structure your life on a daily basis way that gives you the most satisfaction and, where you can kind of play all your cards, but at the end of the day, you have a life as well. I hate saying the work-life balance, but it's really understanding that there needs to be some life part, right? It can't just be work, because then I think what happens, or at least what happened to me, was it became this cycle of living for the weekend, basically going absolutely wild for a very short period of time and then hitting it hard back for, months and years at a time at work. And so anyway, I reached this point at 34 and I was just done. and I didn't have any good answers because I had never actually asked myself the real question of what do you really want to do with your life? And so, my big idea was to be a ski instructor in the French Alps. And that decision precipitated these other events where a guy who had done what I was thinking of doing, and instead of being a ski instructor, had started a ski school, had done it in the French Alps. And so I hit the guy up and I was like, look, I'm in exactly the same spot in my life that you had to have been. Give me a job and I'll be there in weeks. That was my whole pitch, right? And he's like, yeah, let's talk. So it's funny how, like, when the universe talks, sometimes if you're listening, something big can happen. And that's exactly what happened. We ended up having a 4-hour conversation. And it was like, hey, don't do that thing that you were saying. And instead, consider being a tour operator. And so one, I had to find out the definition of a tour operator because I didn't know. And two, I did the research, and actually, it's funny. Today, exactly, it's been 12 years since the day I officially opened up Lugos Travel.
Wow, that's awesome! Congrats, man!
To the day.
Something to celebrate right there, man.
I got my tea in my Maldives mug.
There you go.
I have been there. It is quite amazing. I just did this for you, Brian.
I know, because I told you that's a place I'd love to go. I have never been there. The idea of the warm water stuff always is enticing to me, and it's funny because here we are talking. I am actually in Zion National Park with my family. We're on a trip. We're in an RV that I renovated, which I'm not sure I recommend anybody doing that. It was a huge project, but I'm a project guy. I love working with my hands, construction, all that kind of stuff. But we've been here 3 times and it's great, but there's always hiccups. There's always these things we have to deal with. And there's always the stress thing. So like, as an example, I have the car. My wife's like, hey, we got to go run errands. Where's the car? I'm like, well, I got it over here and blah, 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 blah. And so what you do is do experiences for people where you remove that aspect of the trip, because I have sometimes, not as much now, but in the past, I used to ask for time off, right, from my boss. And then I'd get all stressed out about the trip, having to plan it, what's going to happen on the trip. And, my wife's, or the spouse or whoever else is not wanting to plan it. And I'm doing all the work. And all of a sudden it becomes like, man, this is more like a job to plan this trip. And then I go on the trip and I'm having to deal with all of these things. And I'm like, at the end of the vacation, I need a vacation from the vacation. And I know that pretty much everybody has felt that way. You come back from the trip, you're exhausted from just having to put so much mental energy into it. Right. So what you've done is essentially remove that. So give an explanation of how, so when you started Lugos Travel, and then, today it's a little bit different, of course, but how'd you start doing it? How'd you get into knowing how to put together travel things for people? Like, that's just a weird thing for me to understand, maybe other people, but how'd you get into that?
So definitions. I like definitions because we're all on the same page. So a lot of people equate a travel agent to a tour operator. They see the same thing, right? Yeah. And travel agents do not typically book anything, really. What they are go-betweens between clients and tour operators. It's tour operators that actually build 100% of the tour. So we put together the hotels, the transfers, the guides, the dinners, like all the stuff, prepay all of it. We deal with, sometimes tens or possibly hundreds of different vendors, people, encounters, things that will happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So we're looking at it from a completely different perspective than a travel agent. It's a whole perspective. So over 12 years, what I really had to do was, really, I would say a solid 10 and a half of those first 12 years has been focused on being a custom private luxury tour operation. And so what that meant was that every single client that we spoke to was wholly different than any other client we'd ever spoken to. We did everything custom. Okay. So in the early days, we would on average do 350 emails for each client that went anywhere.
Wow.
Okay. So I understand at a keen level how someone who doesn't do this all the time and who doesn't have systems and processes and backup and insurance and wants to actually work on it, how you can get overwhelmed because there's a lot of decisions, there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And if you got to think of it as a constantly moving jigsaw puzzle in multiple languages and time zones.
Okay.
It's essentially what we do. Okay. And I do what we do for the very express purpose that I lived the life that you described. Like I understood what it was like to have to plan those types of trips for myself because I had, I was a world traveler by the time I was 8 years old. And so I understood like the mechanics of things. What attracted to me really is not my ability to see those pieces and make them all fit. What attracted me really was the ability to actually change people's lives through travel. It's my experience that when you see other cultures, other people, other ways to do things, it unlocks ideas, creativity. It makes you better in your own life. It gives you perspective as to how amazingly blessed we are in this country with a lot of the gifts that we have from our forebears. So I do this really to be able to make sure that people have a great time. And because of that, I keenly and aggressively go after the information or the stressors of creating those experiences. And so after 10 and a half years of doing this with every single person being completely different and completely new, what I realized was there's a lot of commonality in a lot of us. And so I designed a standard tour that we call the Essential Tour. It's our standard platform. Okay. It's basically the structure that we can build everything from. Okay. And so the Essential Tour is very simply everything that anybody would need, whether they've never been somewhere or they've been there 5 times. What are the stripped out things that you would always need? So we start with transportation, and transportation happens with an English speaking driver only when we already include standard gratuity. So you don't have to like worry about how much am I tipping and whatever. And this service goes everywhere you have your luggage, whether it's to the train station or from the airport or whatever, or anytime it's more than 20 minutes from point to point. So our expectation is that if it's a 5-minute walk to the hotel or the restaurant from the hotel, like you'll just walk. We won't set up a car for you then. But but in all other instances, we've got a car for you. And that service, Brian, starts at your very front door. And that's philosophically because I feel your vacation should start when you leave your house, not when you get to the destination.
I like that.
Right? Like, what would you rather do? Would you rather stressfully make sure that your spouse or significant other is running on time, get in the car, fight traffic, go to the parking lot, find a space, grab your bags, do all that stuff? Or would you rather walk out of your front steps, jump into a very nice private car, maybe even with a bottle of champagne and a mimosa, and just relax on your way to the airport? Which one is better, right?
Right.
Okay. So the Essential Tour, that covers transportation. Now we talk about hotels. Hotels, we do 4-star minimum and up. Okay. The up is your choice. We do a minimum 1 category room upgrade. So our standard is already higher than the standard, right? We're doing superior or deluxe rooms. And we do this for a very specific reason. We can get rooms with views. We can get you a room that has a little bit more space, right? Like a little bit more like what we're used to in the United States, as opposed to what's more prevalent in Europe. And so what we do is we're designing this experience, right? We include one welcome dinner on your first night, one farewell dinner on your last night, and we include breakfast every single day. So these are things you don't have to stress out about and do. And then the last thing that we include with the essential tour is one privately guided tour, including skip the line access to whatever it is that you're going to go see and do in each city you visit. You visit 3 cities, you're doing 3 tours. Simple as that. Okay. And so that's the essential tour structure. And by implementing that, Brian, what we were able to do was give everybody a great look at a great tour, because there's a lot of people that want to do like serendipity, right? Like, I want to figure out where I'm going to go. Are you that type of guy? Like, you just like, oh, let me get there and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, me, no, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't like
not that kind of guy.
Not in those kind of scenarios. No. Now, if I'm hopping in one of my classic cars and going for a drive, maybe, but that's because I'm in control and stuff. But otherwise, when I've done that with like the family and the kids and what do you want to eat? I want this, I want that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that. I'm not a big fan of spontaneity in that. In my own experiences, I am not.
I see. So we'll get there because we have something perfect for you too. But there's a lot of people that like want to just sort of experience whatever is going to happen as it lays across their path. Okay.
Right.
So we basically tell everybody that the essential tour structure is perfect for you if that's who you are, right? It gives you a good base of information with the tour. And then the rest of the time you've been oriented in the town, how to get around, where the traffic and stuff is, and what to do. So this is perfect, right?
Yep.
And then for people like yourself who would like to have a few more things planned, we make it this absolute simplest process ever. All you have to do is click your mouse and add it. It's super simple. And so we basically have 4 different types of enhancements. And those enhancements are ways that our clients can choose to make their essential tour distinctly their own. So first category we call savor. Seems like you mentioned food a couple of times. So I'm going to go with you're probably a foodie.
I like food, but I don't eat a lot of like beef, chicken, pork, turkey. I'm a hunter. So I like different stuff.
Gotcha. Well, we can accommodate that. That's not unaccommodatable. So savor is our category where we include foodie options. That could be tastings, wineries, breweries, distilleries, cooking classes, chocolate workshops, Michelin star dining opportunities, you name it. Okay.
Nice.
So if you wanted to add things like that, you can literally say, I want to add that for an X number of people, click, and it's done. Okay. Our second category we call explore. It's anything cultural related. So it could be people, places, history, architecture, anything that's of interest based on those types of scenarios. We offer privately guided tours in those areas. And again, with skip the line access, because we're not here to waste your time.
Right.
Third category is what a lot of guys tend to like. We call it our excite category. And it's pretty wide ranging. It just depends on where in the world that you actually are. But in Costa Rica, it could be whitewater rafting, ATVs, scuba diving, zip lining, stuff like that.
Yeah.
In Italy, you could be driving Ferraris on or off the track. We can do public roads or tracks. In Belgium, you might want to fly in a P-51 Mustang over World War I battlefields, or take a helicopter. We have the availability of putting you into a Navy fighter jet, so you can actually go very fast if that's your thing. We have a number of different things that you can do in the excite category.
That's awesome.
And then the last category we call pampered. And pampered is super simple. If you already understand about yourself that you want the best of everything, then pampered is for you. We offer 3 different ways to upgrade your room, all the way up to a 5-star suite or junior suite with a click of a button. Simple as that. Okay. And our system is so tuned in that we can do something that no other company in the world can do right now, which is get you information. So, Brian, one of the things that I focus on more than anything else is the not sexy pictures that are typically behind me. Mm-hmm. Most companies that do travel want to talk about the sexy pictures, right? The influencers, the girl in the bikini, that sort of stuff. Okay. And that's because that's like most of the sexiness of travel. But I've realized that there's a lot of sexiness in travel that is not being advertised very much. And that is, how can we make this process the least stressful to our clients? Because it's my lived experience that the travel industry as a whole has not really changed in over 60 years, even with the introduction of the internet. So you have to kind of look at things from a historical perspective to understand this. Do you want me to dive into that?
Well, yeah, because it's interesting what you're talking about here. This is just a different model of travel that most people don't even know exists or isn't even an option.
It's true. I mean, it isn't an option if you don't know it exists, right? Like,
yeah,
you can't figure these sorts of things out. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to tell people, because I think this is the kind of the biggest deal, right? You have to be able to define the problem to be able to see how it's been solved. So I'm going to draw a picture for you, and this is 100% factual. I know this because not only have I tested this with all of my competitors, but it's exactly the same system that I myself used for 10 and a half years. Okay. So client such as yourself wants to go to the Maldives or anywhere. The conversation starts with a half an hour to a 1.5 hour phone call. There's no way around it. We got to do that. Okay. That's where we get your taste, your preferences, your budget, like what you want to do, when you want to go, yada, yada, yada. Okay. At the end of that phone call, every single agency in the world is going to be about 3 to 5 business days to get you one proposal. If you ask for more than one proposal, they'll probably say no, and they'll tell you can have one. Okay. Mm-hmm. But regardless, you get your one. And let's say, for example, that for whatever reason, you had to change something. Maybe it's one of the tours, maybe the dates, like anything. You change anything and you let them know, that's another 3 to 5 days to get an update. This process rinses and repeats for typically about 3 weeks before you finally have an understanding of what you're going to do, when you're going to go there, and how much it's going to cost, right?
Yep.
3 weeks. My opinion is that the average American family did not call the travel professional the very first day that they decided they were going to go on vacation. The realities of family life are that you decide to take a vacation and then you do exactly nothing for approximately 1 to 2 months, right? You're just like, this will solve itself. I know it. It's going to be great. Okay.
Yep.
And that never happens. Spoiler alert. So what ends up happening reality-wise is the stress inside of you has been rising and rising and rising until you finally make that phone call. Now, if you make that phone call and then it leads into that 3-week process, your stress level is now through the roof. It's done. Like, you as a person psychologically want something done so bad that you'll take any plan over a great plan. And that is exactly what happens with going on vacation to somewhere you've been before, because you already know how to plan it. You know where to go. You know where you're going to eat. Like, all of those stressful things are gone the second you say, let's go to that spot we've been before. Or the second thing is cruising. This is why it's become very popular, right? Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh my gosh, let me just get a cruise. And then I know where to be. I know what time to be there. I know how much it is, and I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
So what we did with Lugos Travel is we really embraced this this informational gap. Okay. Because over the last 60 years, every company, all they've done is really take the brochures that they used to have online. On paper and mailed you, and they put them online. It's the same concept, same everything.
Right.
Okay. So here's how the experience is at Lugos Travel. Let's see what you think. You can go onto our website. You can see our destinations. We have 66 tours in 20 countries. You can pick any of them. Okay. Once you see the tour, there's a yellow box. It says, would you like a free itinerary? You put in your name, your email, and your phone number, and in 10 minutes, you have a completely ready to go proposal, good for any day of the year, with an essential tour structure to start off with all the basics that you need and pricing, and then all of the options listed and priced, and you can just click, 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 add what you want. When you're done, you know exactly the price. You can sign the contract, pay the deposit, and then you tell us when you want to go. In less than a half an hour, if you're really dedicated to doing this, in less than a half an hour, you could completely plan a 10, 12, 14, 17, 8-day trip in 20 countries worldwide with absolutely no stress.
Wow. So what you're doing is taking a lot of the stuff that is in between the decision making and then the actual travel, just taking it out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is it's ultimately our job is about solving the problems that happen for you. So we've been aggressively identifying what are the problems, what are the pain points, and how can we solve those? Like a family like yours, like I used to get this all the time, right? It'd be like, hey, listen, we're going to Europe. How am I going to charge my phone? What kind of adapters should I get? Where should I buy those? How much are they? Like stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
My clients, we send them adapters. You don't have to know these things. You don't have to find them. You don't have to go get them. My job is to get you back into your life and your work in less than an afternoon, if I can. If I can do that, then you'll make way more money with your time than you would have making a better vacation. And the real value of having somebody else planning it is not just in all of those things that we've discussed, but ultimately it's one of the things actually you mentioned, which is having these emergencies while you're on your trip. Mm-hmm. And Brian, nobody raises their hand when I ask, who would like to be on the clock on your vacation? When the Airbnb that you booked becomes unavailable on the flight when you're on the way there, who would you like to be dealing with those problems? Nobody raises their hand for that.
Right.
When you have a scheduled train to take you from here to there tomorrow morning, and at 2 a.m. they decide to do a train strike, who would you like to be solving those problems? Would you like to be figuring out that type of stuff on your vacation? Is that a vacation that you would particularly enjoy?
Nope, I've been there before and it was not enjoyable.
Right. And so ultimately, it's really thinking about the entirety of the process from start to finish. During our tours, we provide a up to the date, up to the minute app with information like one of the things you said, Ray, you're with your family and you don't know where to eat, right? So we've pre-uploaded great restaurants all over the city. You want to know where to have dinner? You can literally pull up your map on your app and be like, oh, here's some restaurants that Lugos Travel says are already great. And they can give you walking directions right there, and they're not that far from you.
That right there is something that most people don't even that exists.
It's not every restaurant. It's not a Google map. It's restaurants we vetted
for that person.
For you.
Yes, that to me right there is powerful. That is cool.
So we look at how, I don't even know how long we're going to be on this podcast, but if it was 3 hours, I could absolutely go over 3 hours of original content on how we service our clients from start to finish. Like,
and one thing that, I want to make sure that people understand. So like when it comes to business, just as purely business, what you've done at its core is done what some businesses miss. It's you're solving problems. You're providing value, and it's or pleasure, right? It's the pain pleasure thing. You're removing one and providing the other one in that experience. And that is really what makes Lugos, from what I've seen and having known you for years, sets it apart from other people maybe in that same space, because you are really focusing on removing pain, removing stress, removing those things that people always associate with that experience, and just focusing on the experience itself, the pleasure part of it.
Right.
And I've been on a few things that are similar like this, not as extravagant as some of these ones, but I remember it's like, oh my gosh, I had to show up here and do this and do this. And so, this is something that I've learned, studying other business owners and having businesses is doing the same thing. So we have like one of our highest end packages we do is exactly the same thing. It's like, no, we're not going to tell you or ask you to go do this and do this and do this. We're going to tell you when to show up on the call. And then we're going to tell you, here it is. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. Don't have to worry about scheduling it. You're going to give us your calendar. We're going to put it on there. We're going to call you up and say, here's the phone, talk. Like it's kind of a very similar thing. So you're doing that for people so they can actually have a better and more true experience while they're there.
I want people to be immersed. I want people to, here's the thing, right? Like, if 5 years after your vacation, you remember how much you spent, you had a terrible vacation.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, if the money is all you remember, what a great deal you had. I promise you, it was not a good vacation. Like, if all you remember is the experience and what happened and the moments you shared with the people you came with, there's no price tag for that.
Absolutely. And I know that you and people say, oh, who's your ideal avatar or client? I guess I would say.
Sure.
And yours is, so what is your ideal client that you see the most doing these kinds of trips?
So we have really structured a lot of our base offering is really geared more towards maybe the millennial to early or late boomer generation. Where we're a little bit more comfortable not having a long phone conversation, where we're a little bit more comfortable purchasing a high ticket item online. Where ultimately we're not looking to make a best friend, right? When you're making a booking, you're looking to have a service. Like, what we've done is to reframe what you said. We have productized a service. We've taken a service that encompasses multiple different vendors from multiple different places strung together for your pure enjoyment. And we've put it together in a box that you can say, I want that, and be done. Right. I mean, essentially that's what we've done.
Gotcha. How like of the percentage of your people that do these trips, how many have kids or families that go with them?
Yeah, I mean, a fair amount. So we definitely skew towards that. So like our avatar would be maybe 30 to 55 years old, wants to take a great vacation, understands the value of being able to be with loved ones and do some things that they want to do. Generally speaking, our tours are, I mean, it depends. It's a wild scale, right? It depends on if it's a 5 or 6 day tour where it's about $7,000 for 2 people. Or in some of our most expensive ones where we're, about 16 days in Africa with a very privatized experience. It can be upwards of $35,000 for 2 people. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, as far as the demographics, take a look at it from that angle. It really just depends. A lot of our tours are $10,000 to $20,000. not including flights. So that's the general gist of where we're at.
Gotcha. It makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, I'd love to go on one of your trips, man. Just to be honest, because that sounds like a lot of fun. And the Maldives is an area that I think my kids would love. So,
it's good that you say that. Like, let's dig into why would your kids love it, right? Why would you and your wife love it with your kids? These are things that like really is the information that's in between. It's the information sandwich, right? The bread is just like, hey, we went to the Maldives. But like understanding what is that experience truly like, right?
Yeah.
With the Maldives, I always start with the worst part. If it was any further away, it would be closer. That's the worst part. Okay. It's far. On average, from most places in the United States, it's roughly 30 hours of total travel.
Ooh, wow. That's a lot.
Okay. Man. Now that's including layovers. There's a lot of time changes in terms of that and stuff like that. But roughly speaking, on a chronological scale, from the day you leave, it's about 30 hours until you land.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. Once you get there, and when I say get there, I mean step off the plane into the airport. Everything else is just incredible. Like awe-inspiring, incredible. But what you would love is once you get to the resort, you would have a butler. Your butler would be more than pleased to keep your kids completely busy all day while you and your wife go scuba diving or hang out or do your own thing. And then your butler will bring your kids to the dinner at the same time, completely ready, like everything done. Okay. There'll be like 30 different kinds of honey for you in the breakfast, as well as the ability to have a genuinely real Chinese breakfast, Indian breakfast, European breakfast, American breakfast. If you like food, this is a juncture of lots of different cultures and people where a lot is offered. If you like scuba diving, there are 48 dive sites near one of our resorts, and all of them are ridiculous. Okay. You can see whale sharks, octopus, giant manta rays with 10, 12-foot wingspans, all kinds of stuff. If you have never scuba dived, you can do it from the house reef. You literally just walk right into an awesome reef. And you can just do that with a snorkel if you want, if you feel more comfortable. There's semi-submersible boats, not like the one that's going to the Titanic. This one never goes underneath the water, but it has an air-conditioned room underneath the water and uses electric motors so it doesn't spook the fish. So you can scuba dive without ever getting a drop of water on you.
Oh, geez. Wow.
I mean, it's luxury at a level that like is almost impossible to replicate. And a lot of people don't realize the why. The why is because they have the highest service to guest ratio in the world.
Yeah, I've heard that. Heard it's pretty powerful.
Well, what does that really mean though, Brian? Like, right? Let's paint a picture. So there was a little beach bar and I had a beer and I walked into the water and I was enjoying myself immensely. And minutes later, my beer was no more. And so I thought, well, I'll just walk up to the bar and I'll grab one. And I didn't make it 3 steps before I saw the bartender had noticed that I was out of my beer and had one for me on a tray, fully dressed in his shorts and his like shirt, and was walking into the water all the way up, like to bring it to me. I was like, this is crazy.
Wow. And those kind of experiences are, what a lot of people, that's what you want to be there and remember and enjoy is that right there. Not the other stuff around that we're talking about. So that is really what I love what you've done with Lugos Travel is just focus on the experience, focus on the memories that you're going to create and that, and just be present, be immersed, as you said. I love that word immersion, is be immersed in the experience. So
right. I mean, and you can't do that if you're worried about stuff.
Yeah. So Yeah. And, like on this trip I'm at right now, this one I've done it before, so I didn't really have to worry about it as much because I knew how to do it all. But I remember when I first
Sure.
when I first came to where I'm at, Zion National Park, where I'm at right now with my family, there was so much work that went into scheduling the trip. And I remember the trip. I remember the disasters that happened because they were funny. But I
Right.
remember that I was like, oh my gosh, that was one of the more stressful trips I've ever been on because I had to reschedule all the time, everything. It was 5 weeks. That's a long time though to be around my three kids. I'll just put it that way. But but what you're doing is making that experience completely different. So I love what you're doing, man. I love Lugos Travel. Cannot wait to have my own experience with you. So with that, Shane, so if somebody wants to learn more about Lugos or about what you guys do, where would they go? How would they find out more?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is ShaneMahoney360.com. That's ShaneMA Honey360.com. And from there, anybody could be able to schedule time on my calendar, send me a message, send me an email, look at our websites and properties. If you want to check out lugostravel.com or Lugos Travel for all of our social medias, we basically want to be able to elevate your travels, and we call that the art of what's possible.
Love that. Shane, thank you so much once again. And thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing you here in maybe a month or so at BA.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Living Legacy Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.